everyone. I think we still have a few people coming in, but in the interest of time, we'll go ahead and get started, and I'll introduce our guest chefs for today. So as you know, this is our second season of World Kitchen, and we're thrilled to have today, some chefs showing you how to make some Polish pierogies. And my colleague and friend, Susan, and her husband, Tom Chyczewski, are here to help us learn how to make these Polish pierogies. Go ahead, Tom, you can get over there. It's a little camera shy, right?
Well, she's
Susan?
driving.
Okay,
I'm driving.
there we go. Susan's driving.
He loves the way I drive.
Okay, good to know. So as you can see, it's going to be a fun afternoon. And like I said in the email I sent out this morning, I am so happy with the weather this cold that we're going to have some wonderful pierogies to keep us warm this cold season. I'm going to just turn it over to them and let them get started. See you soon.
So, hi everybody. My name is Susan, and we're going to make some pierogies today. We're going to do two fillings. One filling is a sauerkraut filling, and the other filling is a meat filling. And you can use any kind of chopped meat. More traditional would be to use pork, which is what we're going to do here. What we usually do is we start boiling the sauerkraut first. That kind of softens it up. I'm going to put some sauerkraut in a pot to boil, set that aside for 30 minutes, and get started on the meat filling while that's boiling. So I try not to get too much of the juice in here. Now, a jar like that is about half the size, you need a pound. So this one's 2 pounds. So I'm just going to put about half of it in to boil. And I don't know if you want to put in the chat. I don't know how many of you are cooking with us today, just to get an idea, and maybe where you're from. Be interesting to see where everybody's from. And if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. I did not grow up making these. My husband's family has taught me how to do that, and they have shared a lot of great recipes with us through the years, along with the Polish recipes. On the other side of the family, we have some Armenian and Irish. So lots of different things being cooked in the Chyczewski household.
So far we've got watching from State College. Someone says they're going to be cooking after the show, and they're from Houtsdale. And someone else says they're not cooking today, but they are watching.
You want it in the back, or?
Yeah. All right, and then the next thing is we're going to start with some pork, and the pork is a pound of pork, 2 tablespoons of butter or margarine, and we're going to mix that with some onions. Basically, you add the butter to the skillet and the onion and saute it until it's tender, and then you're going to add some meat mixed with some eggs. So you want to chop
Chop it?
you want to bring the onion over here. And
Yeah, if you chop under there, they'll see how you're doing that, how big you're chopping.
he knows how to chop. I'm not the one who chops well. Thank you. I'll get this started while you're doing that.
How many? You just want the one?
Yeah, actually, we're gonna need 2 eventually, so if you want to do 2 while we're at it. So there'll be 1 onion in with the pork and 1 onion in with the sauerkraut. And then you might want to cook your pierogies with some sliced onion, depending on what you like.
Sarah says she's in State College. Her mother's maiden name was Karazinski, and pierogies are a part of their Thanksgiving menu.
Oh, that's cool.
Ooh, what do they fill them with?
I don't know, Sarah, what do you fill them with?
So I used to think, like everyone, that they were all filled with mashed potatoes. I had no idea. We also do a mushroom recipe, which I didn't think to do today because it's a little more difficult. It gets a little watery. It's hard to get the dough to stick.
So Tom, I see you're using the technique of leaving the end of the onion on there to hold it together, huh?
Yeah, when I was a kid, I used to work in a restaurant. I spent a couple of summers cooking lunches.
Yeah.
So this is the way I was taught.
Very smart.
Yep. All right. So you good? Or you want me to do the other one now, or I could do that on the side?
Yeah, you could, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
So we're gonna put this, actually, maybe if you can keep an eye, turn the stove on and keep an eye on the onion when you put it in there, and I'm going to mix the pork with some egg while you do that.
Start sauteing.
Yeah. Let him do that.
Well, Sean, set up.
We'll do other ones.
So when I crack my eggs, just to make sure I don't end up with the shell and whatever I'm making, I usually do it in a separate bowl because I'm a little. And probably I'm not like, see, there's the shell. That way I don't have to make sure it's all picked out of something else. And I'm like one of those people who washes your hands like 20 times. All right, so beaten eggs with this very fancy fun whisk.
We have another person in the chat saying they're from Center Hall, and it says they say my Bubba and made hers with potatoes and prunes for Christmas.
Together? Two different.
I don't-
Wow.
I'm gonna use this as a waste roll. Just
Oh, yeah, good idea.
start rolling your dough.
Yeah, gotta get, yeah, because I've done that where you're cooking all this stuff and then you go to roll your dough and a little chunk of raw onion ends up in there. That's always fun. So the meat filling is basically just pork, eggs, salt and pepper. Nothing fancy. The one thing about Polish food is it really is kind of comfort food, and that the simplicity of it, the warmth of it. Sometimes it's a little heavy, get that feeling. So our salt and pepper.
They said not together. Savory were potatoes.
Oh,
prunes,
no.
and soup.
I was gonna say, that sounds almost Middle Eastern to have the fruit with the
Yeah,
savory, right?
it
So. Eggs in here. They're almost like meatloaf.
You have a wooden spoon or something I can stir this with? Oh, there you go. Thanks.
And the recipe calls for half teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of pepper. I'm kind of one of the palm of your hand with that kind of thing. And get it open. Like, just eyeball it. I tend to use less salt in most recipes. But you want to do it to taste. I think Tom likes more salt than I do.
I'm not really a saltaholic, but I like a little salt.
Yeah, you know, we all try to cook so healthy and lower the salt, and then you eat it and you're like, oh, if it just had a little more salt.
I know,
it would
on the
taste so
table,
much
like-
better.
There's
Yeah.
more in there. More salt now. And you have to be careful with baking because it's part of the chemical process. You really
Yeah.
can't play around with those things. Has to be the right way.
Yeah, that's kind of what I always told my kids. Cooking is not rocket science, but baking is.
Yeah, I have 2 cookbooks written by biochemists. And I like to look at like, this is why this happens this way. All right, so I have in here the onions over there. We got the butter, we got everything we need. So this We're gonna saute with the onion. I think that's, yeah.
And we just got this ground pork at, you know, one of your local supermarkets. There's nothing special about it. It's just ground pork.
So I did find there is a pork store in, let's say Phillipsburg. They thought that way at least. But, you know, they're associated, there's a hog farm actually in Julie, which I didn't know about. And so they have any kind of pork product. I think it's called Hog Wild.
Funny.
Because we make fresh kielbasa, and that is a good place to go. We got it last year, right?
Yeah.
And we got the casing there. If you never had fresh kielbasa, it's not really like what you find in the store. Nope.
Yeah, that sounds really good. We will definitely be making that sometime next week. When you get to know your
So this, you're just basically cooking it until it's browned. I published this. We can let this sit while we make the dough. You want to keep an eye on that?
I'll keep an eye on it.
Give him something to
Yeah.
do besides chop onions.
Let me think. So. All right, so our dough, actually I forgot to ask for a bowl, or no, we use the KitchenAid bowl. Okay. So there's different dough recipes. When I was like getting ready for this and I was trying different ones, but this is the one I usually come back to. And this dough recipe, thank you so much. It calls for 4 cups of flour, 2 eggs, 5 tablespoons of sour cream, and 6 tablespoons of oil. I've seen other recipes that are much simpler. They're just 3 cups of flour and 3 eggs, and then water until it's the right consistency. So it doesn't have to be super fancy. This one we're gonna do. I'm gonna put the 4 cups of flour. Should I move this in? Or-
Yeah.
So I like to use a KitchenAid. Kneading dough by hand is for the young.
Yeah.
So 4 cups of flour. And if you were like listening to your cooks, they would tell you, no, you should always spoon the flour into the cup. But with dough, for when I make bread or anything, you know your consistency and you adjust the liquid until it's got the right consistency. So I don't get too worried about how I scoop my flour, except when I'm using my bread machine. And then I'm a little more careful. Tom has taken over the bread making in the house, so I don't have to worry about it anymore. Here, so all-purpose flour. You probably could use bread flour. Bread flour just has more gluten in it. It wouldn't make a difference in this case. And then in here, we're also going to put 2 eggs. Yeah.
Someone in the chat is asking, why do you prefer the dough recipe you're doing today?
That I think the sour cream in it, I think makes a difference in the taste. It just tastes more, and I don't want to say taste more Polish because I'm not Polish and I've never been to Poland, but it tastes more like my mother-in-law's food. So let's see. So I'm going to put in for sour cream. And so it says, the recipe says 5 tablespoons. 4 tablespoons is a 1/4 cup. So what you could do is put a 1/4 cup in there and then 1 more tablespoon if you want to make it simpler for yourself. Knowing those different measurements sometimes makes life a little easier. There's another recipe in the book that I usually go to that has a lot of things with sour cream in it. I don't know why. I mean, sour cream is just, it's a staple for this kind of cooking. Is that 3? And I tend to, when I'm using sour cream to cook, I wouldn't use low fat because the fat's going to make a difference in your recipe. But like when you're sauteing them and you having sour cream with them, then it doesn't really matter, whatever you like. Never really like fat-free stuff. Always just had a weird taste to it for me.
I know with Persian cooking, we use a lot of yogurt, and for years I bought into the hype of getting the low fat yogurt, but the taste is just not the same. So I've gone back to getting the full fat yogurt and figuring if we eat it once or twice a month, it's
Right.
fine, as long as it tastes good.
For the ethnic foods, yeah, we're the same way.
So 6 tablespoons of oil, which would be a 1/4 cup, and 2 tablespoons if you want to make it a little easier. We make our own yogurt now, actually.
We used to back in the grad school days when yogurt was not as easily accessible in the US.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the 80s, it was really hard to find,
Yeah.
you know?
No, now it's everywhere. I think that and the story of the guy who started Chobani's is pretty interesting.
Yes.
I think I've lost count, but
That was 4.
should do like the count. 1 tablespoon of oil.
And you're just using regular vegetable oil for this.
Yep, just regular vegetable oil, nothing special. I'm always a little leery about changing oils too, because it wouldn't have an effect here, but the smoke factor and that kind of thing. So our dough was 4 cups of flour, 2 eggs, 5 tablespoons of sour cream, 6 tablespoons of vegetable oil. So I have not put the eggs in yet. I'm gonna mix it a little first, and then the water is like a 3/4 cup. Did I put them in there?
I think you did,
No.
because we used 2 in the other.
In the
It's in the meat.
No.
no.
They're right here.
Oh,
Oh.
okay. I knew they were not in the container anymore. That's where I was going.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and you gave me more than 3/4 cup of.
Oh,
water.
they're these.
Oh, right there. Okay, thanks. I just want to make sure I'm not overdoing it.
That's a half.
Yeah, I'm gonna do. This too, I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it for when I add it. So what I usually do is I'll mix everything and a little water, and then I'll put the eggs in, because eggs, if you mix and mix and mix, it changes their consistency. So I don't like to put them in first before everything else is done.
So you've said that you always use more of a stand mixer to do this. You don't really normally do it by hand.
No, I've never done it by hand. But I sometimes I'll make dough with the food processor. So I make pizza dough, I make it with the food processor. Just the cookbook that I had said to do that. And and it's really, really easy because with the food processor, you turn it on and it looks well mixed. And then it turns in a ball. Once it's in a ball, you turn it off. Like, so I'm gonna put the eggs in there too. Make sure you don't end up with shells on there. It's never fun to try to get shells out of your flour.
So this meat is all browned. Keep it simmering or turn it off?
Yeah, if it's cooked through,
Yeah.
turn it off, and maybe can we put the meat in a bowl, because we'll put the onion and sauerkraut in there as well.
Okay.
So I just kind of want to take a breath in case anybody cooking with us needs space to.
Yeah, so the
things
pork
done.
doesn't really brown as much as ground beef does.
It does, and it always has that color to
A
it.
little lighter.
Yeah.
So, all right, a bowl. Do we have a bowl? Stick it back in here. Wash this out.
Oh, yeah, that has a raw egg in it, so. Just squish these. So the dough also needs just a little salt, and you don't want to skip that. That helps with the chemical process. So it says a pinch. I usually interpret a pinch to be about a quarter teaspoon.
These other bowls out.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna let this mix. You can see that it's starting to get a little more like dough. It's still dry. You want the dough to be sticky, just not, you have to be able to work with it. And so that when you push on it, it bounces back a little. So this is a little water. And if you're using a KitchenAid, you want it to clamp down so it doesn't pop up on you, especially when it starts to get at this point. And once it's kind of holding together, anybody working dough by hand at home? Getting your muscles.
It's like a baguette.
Yeah. I think it's, so you can see like, if I push on it, it kind of pops, it comes back up. So that's about the right texture, and it's not so sticky, it's sticking to my hands. There's still little like at the bottom, but if I continue to add water until it all came up, it would be too mushy. And I usually, like with my hands, I'll just kind of little bits and hold it together. So I'm gonna make space for this to work on the counter.
Maybe wipe the counter down or something.
Yeah, the marble is good to work on. It needs
Yeah.
to be wiped a little bit. There are two ways of doing this. We're gonna do one, just the really not so fancy way. This is the roller that I like because it's one-handed. But you can use a regular roller. And then if you want to be fancy, this is a pasta machine. And the way you would use this, the first time I tried this, it was sticky. And when I put the dough through, it looked like kind of bubbly and it just didn't work. What I figured out was when you use something like this, you need to put more flour in. You need to make sure your dough is covered well with flour. And the way you would do this, if you have one of these, once I got the hang of it, I really liked it. So I would put it through the widest spot, roll it through once. Then I would take it down one, roll it through again, take it down one and roll through again. And I really liked using it, but I was gonna stick with just doing it by hand because I figured most people don't have that at home. It's a little easier to do it this way. So if you're gonna take a long time with this, you wanna kind of cover your dough with either with plastic wrap or a damp lint-free cloth. You don't wanna have little bits of mint in your dough. But I think we're going to be moving fast enough that we don't have to cover it. I'm going to squish this a little bit better. It's actually not as sticky as I was expecting. It should be good. So I have two things for rolling it out. I have my little biscuit cutter, and it has a little fancy thing inside that we can use to seal it. Or I got this cool gadget where you would take dough and you put it across the top, set this in, and it pushes everything in. Then you put dough on top of that and use your rolling pin to get to this, to get it all cut. So if you're making a lot, I think this was like $15. It's a worthwhile gadget to have. But I'm assuming not everyone has that. So we're going to start with just regular, use your rolling pin. And this is a little, like your dough should be not quite as gritty as this came out. I probably could have added a little more water, but we'll see how it goes. And I like to kind of pull it flat this way before I start rolling it, almost like you're making a pizza, you're pulling it out. Funny thing, when I bought this little gadget, it had a recipe on it for pierogi dough. And then I was like, I liked it so much, I bought another one for ravioli. And the recipe was the same. Like,
So ravioli and pierogies use the same dough.
well, according to the gadget people.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
You know, October was Polish American Heritage Month and Italian American Heritage
Oh,
Month.
really?
So it could be that, you know, they're just got a lot of similarities.
Well, isn't it now? Pasta was really originated in Asia, right? I think
China.
So,
China, yeah. So
Yeah, I think a lot of the Polish and Italian traditions are similar.
oh yeah, like
True.
Christmas.
Christmas Eve, you know, like the Italians that have the meal of the 7 fishes or
Yeah.
whatever. And we don't have 7 fishes, at least in my family, but it's a big fish dinner.
You want this kind of thin.
I can see what you mean. I was like thinking, I wonder why you want to do this instead of a regular rolling pin, but I can see how you can get more pressure on it with this.
You can, and so this side is rounded. So sometimes
Yeah.
when you're like, really need to push out here, I can use this.
That's going on my Christmas list if my kids are watching.
This one's old. I Pampered Chef. I don't know. I think it's like maybe 18 years old. I
Yeah.
think, because I think the one they have now is like plastic.
Of course. Might have to find it on Etsy to get a real good one. Huh? So yeah, you're going pretty thin with that, right?
Yeah, I'm going thin. And let's see. We'll just make, if you want to bring the pork over, we'll do a couple of pork ones.
What else needs to be done with the sauerkraut?
Oh, actually, I'm glad you brought that up. I think that needs to be drained and then we can saute that with the onions. Want to do that now before we do this?
Is that what this column is for?
Yeah, you want to do both. You can do-
So you just totally cook that just in water, just to soften it up? And
Yep, just to soften it up.
does it take some of the sourness out as well?
I think it takes some of the saltiness out.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it gets some of that brine out of there. And I saw that someone had commented on Facebook that their grandmother used cabbage. I don't know if they're on the Zoom. I'm interested in how that recipe might be different.
How much butter?
So the sauerkraut filling was a pound of sauerkraut, a tablespoon of butter, medium onion, and a pinch of salt and pepper. So Tom is going to put that on the,
So when my grandmother makes, well, when she used to make kapusta, which is essentially just sauerkraut with salt pork and onions. She would rinse the sauerkraut pretty thoroughly to get a lot of that tanginess out.
Okay.
Although my father, he doesn't like it, which is kind of strange. He likes all that tanginess in there.
So yeah, that might be why.
So I'm from, my family background, I guess, is very German, part of it at least. And we have the pork and sauerkraut and black-eyed peas for New Year's Day. You know, you don't have
I want
any
that
luck.
recipe.
You don't have luck unless you have pork, sauerkraut, and black-eyed peas on New Year's Day.
I knew the black-eyed peas, but I didn't know the sauerkraut. I thought that was
Yeah.
like Hoppin' John was a southern.
Well, it's,
Tradition.
yeah, so the pork, we do the pork and the sauerkraut together, like I use a slow cooker. And then we do the black-eyed peas separately, and we make mashed potatoes to go with it. And so that's our very carb-filled New Year's Day.
Well, it's before the New Year's resolutions, we must make sure we have as much as possible. So yeah.
Alex, we're
So
not
soften
doing
the onions a
anything
little
with
bit
that.
first before putting the sauerkraut in there, or just get them all?
I think, yeah, do it. I don't know. I just kind of tend to do them all together. The
Okay.
recipe I started said to do one and then the other, but I think they're both good when they're nice and softened.
All right, sounds good. Yep.
Yeah. All right, so while that's softening, I'm just putting a damp paper towel on this dough so it doesn't get dried out. All right. So this is the most time-consuming part, and that is cutting out your actual pierogies. So if you make a few cuts.
So you're pushing and then twisting, right?
Yeah, I'm pushing and then twisting just to make sure it's cut. But you could use a glass for this or whatever, or I like these things that you have here. Lots of different sizes to choose from.
Yeah, those are just plain old biscuit cutters.
And then if you take so this is pork and onion, and this is actually our favorite. So we'll make sauerkraut, we'll make mushroom, and I'll serve all three, but everyone's always wants the pork. So I'm going to do that. You don't want to get too much in there because then they're hard to take out. I'm actually just going to do like this. Give ourselves a little space. And if you need to scoop things up, this is a tool I like to use when you're trying to get it.
Oh, that come in your bread making kit?
This was left in our house, one of the houses we bought, the owner left it there. I was like,
got
what's
something-
this?
I got something similar in a bread making kit during the pandemic.
And it is a really useful tool to scrape up dough. So one of the mistakes that I made was I thought, oh, I'll fold it over when I was first figuring it out, and then I would push down because this has the little ridges in there. But I found it's a lot easier to pull it up like you're making a taco and just squeeze the pieces together. And if you're worried, if your dough seems a little dry, you can just get your finger a little wet and like this so it'll stick better. And then you're going to want to like seal it. So the easiest thing, simple, take a fork, give it a little push to make sure the dough is stuck together. And maybe if you want to grab like a plate or something to set these on. And what you can do with these is you can sit them on a cookie sheet or whatever while you're waiting before you get ready to boil them. Or you can also have like a nice flat tray, and as soon as you're done with them, stick them in the freezer And you'll have these like ready to go for whenever, just like Mrs. Pierogies.
So if you freeze
Or
them,
Mrs.
are we done with that? Should we move? Oh, no, the dough's still. in.
No, we can take the bowl
Yeah.
So if you freeze them, and you want to use them, then do I bring them to room temperature?
You can, so the frozen ones, what I would do is just boil them a little longer. So this recipe with these that are fresh, you can boil them for 5 minutes, drain, and then saute. Which makes me think in a few minutes, we should probably turn the water on so it's boiling when we're ready to use it. It was
Tom's way
already
ahead
on.
of you there.
So the last one I did with a fork, but I'll just show you how this little gadget works, is if you push down on this, it seals them. Sometimes it, looks a little prettier. There we go, so they can see.
So you're saying that with, for most people, just doing this with your fingers is probably the best bet.
If you're not gonna do this a lot, doing it with your fingers is just the easiest thing to do, and it's kind of a day. I know that my sister-in-law has days of baking with her daughters when they do the holidays and they make special things. You can do it on both sides if you want to make sure it's sealed. I don't think I've ever had a pierogi open up when I boiled them, but could. So just like that. And the sauerkraut is really pretty much the same thing. You're putting your little filling in the middle. I always end up putting too much. I was like, you need more pork. And then I end up moving it to another one.
How many of these do you typically do for your family in one evening, like for one dinner?
Each person will eat like 6, but we're not big eaters.
Is that if you've got other sides, or is that
That's pretty much all we eat when we have like
pierogies? You
pierogies.
just eat the pierogies?
Yeah,
Yeah,
with
like
the onions,
6.
sauteed onions,
Sauteed onions and
sour cream.
sour cream.
Mhm.
I mean, the first time when I was making these a couple weeks ago, trying to make sure that I had it down, because I hadn't made them in a long time. I didn't get the whole shebang. Like I made all of them, I boiled all of them, I sauteed all of them. It took like 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
That's why I say it's really like just to have them like this, you freeze them, put them in a bag, and then you'll have them for whenever. It's kind of the way to go, because if you spend 2 hours cooking and then you're like a puddle when it's all done. So it's, cook a few for that dinner, but have some left over for later. Kind of depends if it's like for a big family dinner or whatever. These are also good. I've seen people use pierogies as like a little hors d'oeuvre.
Mhm.
They'll have them out, and then people will use toothpicks. Chopping that stuff. I do like the mushroom,
Oh, you mean the kapusta?
the mushroom filling.
Mhm.
I made that one. I didn't think we'd have time to do that as well, but maybe we could have. The trick with the mushroom filling is it gets kind of watery. And then as you're sealing your pierogies, like the water leaks out. You have to be a little more careful with how you seal them. So I was thinking that I could show you how this one works. So I'm going to take this bit here. Maybe roll it out a little more. it's funny how much, you know, I have like 2 Polish cookbooks, and neither one of them is potatoes as a filling for pierogies.
And that's what we all think of.
Yeah, and I'm sure it might be a regional thing, and that those particular authors in their region of Poland, maybe they don't do that. So it's always interesting to me what different traditions are in different places. I had a lot of students from Ecuador when I worked on Long Island, and I'd always ask them, you know, what are you going to eat for the holidays? What do you guys like? And they would laugh at each other. They're like, you eat that? We don't eat that. You know, it's kind of like us. Well, you're in West Virginia. You eat that? I'm like, it's all different.
So you had it stretched out over the entire thing, and now we're pushing it down with the plastic piece.
And one time I made the mistake of like, I'm like, oh, look, I should push really hard. That was a mistake. Just gently push it down.
Okay.
And this one, doing it this way, you can see you have the little indentations. I'm gonna set that aside and roll some more out for the top before I put those fillings in, because I don't want them to sit inside of it while I'm working the dough.
Yeah, I know with my friend who does some, like I was telling you earlier, she does a kind of a dish after Thanksgiving and uses all of her leftover turkey that's very similar to a pierogi. Can't I think they called them bellinis, but I know that's a drink. I don't know. But
Peach Bellini, right?
yeah, that's what I'm thinking, but I feel like that's what they called them. Anyway, when they do it as, you know, it's kind of a family thing, you know, all the ladies, I don't want to be sexist about it, but all the ladies are in the kitchen usually working on that, you know, and there's a ball game on or something, and everybody just talks and jokes and laughs through it, and it makes the time go faster if you're all working together.
Now you've given me an idea. I'm like, maybe I'll make pierogi dough after Thanksgiving, and like turkey with a little dab of cranberry.
Yeah. You gonna come over and do it here? You like my countertop, Susan.
I do. It's funny. I'm a big Black Friday person. It really made me sad when Black Friday became Black Month. Because we would get up at like 5 o'clock and we'd all go. I mean, we were never part of the like storming the castle type Black Friday, but go to the toy store with Cabbage Patch dolls or whatever was the thing that our kids wanted, and you go and get electronics. I remember the first time my in-laws had done Black Friday, I took them out and they got like a 60-inch TV, and they were amazed because they'd never been Black Friday shopping. And then, you know, like by 9 a.m. we're beat, and we go get a big breakfast. So I still like to go out on Black Friday. And one year I got plantar fasciitis. Oh, because I was like, are you an athlete? Did you get injured? I'm like, no, I was shopping.
The shopping injury.
The shopping injury. Maybe this year. So this seems a little thick to me. So that's when I would use this side of it to kind of dig into it and get it and out. Afraid I let this sit. We'll see how it goes. So with this, you just put a little in each one. And I like, if it's juicy, I try not, you know, try to get the top dry parts. You don't want it to get too wet. And, you know, this is like one of those things where it's, you know, you could use beef. You could probably even use that. What's that fake meat?
Oh, yeah, like a mystery meat or whatever.
Yeah.
Impossible burger.
Impossible, yeah.
That's what
I've
it
never
is.
tried to cook with that, so, but you could probably do that and it would be good. I hear good things about it. Can't really be a vegetarian because I have a B12 problem, but I dream about it. So then with this thing, you put one on top. And then you take your roller and you roll it down. Just first gently. So you can start to see the lines. And then I use this to kind of get the. I like this thing. It's kind of interesting the way it cuts them like this.
So it's the metal of the device that is actually kind of cutting it because you're pushing
Yep.
the dough down with the roller.
And so, just kind of follow the lines and make sure it's cut all the way through. And I just bought this a couple weeks ago, so I'm sure I haven't mastered it. There's probably some trick to the trade that I have not gotten yet. The way I've gotten this thing. And they look a little prettier. This one got a little thin, but the way I would take them out would be like this.
Should I start sauteing the onion? Or,
Oh,
this
for cooking, yeah, because we're actually close to boiling these. So that water's going. Actually, I should make a couple sauerkraut ones, right? Maybe we'll do it on this so we can get them done at once. This time goes really
It
fast.
does, I told you, yeah. You always think you don't have enough to fill the hour, but it goes
Yeah.
fast.
Like, oh. One time when I was using this, what I tried to do was fold it over, but it didn't quite work the way I thought it should. So I tried to be like super clever and make it double the
Wide,
width.
yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes the dough, like you look where the dough's thick and where I need to push, and it's not necessarily going to look like a rectangle. We also make babka. That is, people might remember that from the Seinfeld.
Yes.
It's basically a cinnamon swirl bread, or they make chocolate babka.
Mhm.
It's really an Easter dish, but I usually make it around Christmas too.
I have a very good friend who loves babka and she brings it to every event.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she loves babka.
Does she make it herself? Does she go buy it?
No, I think she buys it, yeah. And her mom lives in New York, so I think she purchases it up there frequently and brings it down.
I've seen it here occasionally. I think in Wise. That was really the first Polish food that I made, but I like baking. And then we also have, so this is from Poland. This was a
Looks very antique, yes.
and this is for making the kielbasa
yep, once a year.
once a year. And we haven't found anything better than this. No gadgets. That's the way to do it. I don't know, I've heard people say food is love.
Yeah.
And it's like food is family. So there's the sauerkraut. So I'm gonna put, actually, I'm gonna make
It's
them.
hot, so,
What is?
well, just came up like 5 minutes ago.
So you can take this sauerkraut and pulse it in your food processor, but I don't think it really needs that. I don't like it when things get too mushy. I like there to be a little chunk to it, but that's like a personal preference. Certainly can be done that way. All right, we'll do it this way. Have to do. Well, I think this works a little better if you leave a little overhang and then push it in like that. You won't have them break like the one over there broke. more dough to cover it. What else do we make that's Polish? Oh, yes. Jelly pig's feet.
That's actually very good. It's definitely an acquired taste that you have to acquire at a young age, I think.
Yeah.
But it's good, you use all parts of the animal, right? And yeah, jelly pig's feet is,
Oh,
it
what's it
smells
called?
up the house all day. Beautifully.
I'd be out on the balcony.
Yeah. In Polish is ziemnogi, which is literally jelly pig's feet. It's good. It's like, it's like head cheese. I don't know if you've had head cheese.
No,
but
no, I
it's
haven't purposely, but
Yeah.
yes.
not as bad as scrapple. I've had scrapple once and I can't do that again, but oddly, jelly pig's feet is okay in my book.
I think you're right, though. I think you did hit it on the head. It's kind of what you grow up with.
Yeah.
I think kids whose parents or whose, mom insisted that they eat, liver and onions or something are okay with it. Whereas for me, my mom never did because she didn't like it herself. And
Yeah.
so I don't do liver.
Yeah,
In my family, we say I don't do parts because I don't do any of that internal organ stuff,
Yeah, I grew up with a very meat and potatoes family, and it wasn't until I was in the Peace Corps that I learned to eat different things.
Mhm.
And I sure learned because I gained 30 pounds in West Africa.
Oh, wow.
I'll never forget when I came home, my friend, he'd been in the Peace Corps, he'd been in Ecuador, and he'd lost 25 pounds. And so we were both came home at the same time, and our friends were like, well, Susan, you look so healthy. They raised their hand for,
Susan, we're showing that you raised your hand. I don't know if that was a mistake or if you had a question. If you have a question, you can always just unmute yourself and ask as well.
so this will start gently. I push to that sides. And when you start to see the outline, you push a little harder to get it to cut the pieces in.
So you said you purchased a ravioli maker too. Does it work in much the same way?
It's just like this.
Just
I
a
haven't
different
tried it
shape?
yet. Yeah,
Yeah.
just a different shape. I'm looking forward to it. But I mean, now I'm gonna be like Miss Carbohydrates.
Mhm.
I don't eat this way that often, but it's the season though.
Yeah. The weather gets cold and you kind of crave it. I guess that's the biology in us.
It is.
Yeah,
That's how we survive. Need to put on a little bit of,
our winter hibernation weight.
the average person gains 8 pounds between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
So Susan put it in the chat. She said, if anyone's looking for a Polish cookbook, check Sugared Orange and Rose Petal Jam authors Beta Zatorska and Simon Target. Beautiful pictures and stories.
Oh, really? I have a whole closet full of cookbooks. And when the AAUW has their book sale, that's where I go. I want to see all the cookbooks. This one came out a little easier. I want to kind of keep these to the side since these are the sauerkraut and those are the pork. Do you want to boil the pork
Sure.
ones?
So the one that you said kind of broke open, would you try to pinch that together or?
I would have probably taken it apart.
Okay.
I just left it because it was
Okay.
broken right in the top.
Mhm. So Tom's just dropping them right in the boiling water.
And then for 5 minutes.
No, the water getting there. Not quite boiling, but,
You
Up a little.
you want to move to a bigger burner? That might be.
oh, is this a small one?
Yeah, that's a small
Oh,
one.
yeah, yep.
They'll cook a little when you saute too, so.
So you think the initial 5 minutes of boiling is to kind of cook the
The
pasta, the dough, and then the sauteing browns them and crisp them up.
Yeah, so 5 minutes. If you freeze them, you're gonna want to boil them for almost 10 minutes.
Mhm.
And you can freeze them like right from how we formed them, you can freeze them that way, or you can boil them, drain them, and then freeze them.
Mhm.
But I think this is just easier
Yeah.
to do it this
yeah.
way.
I can see where if you would try to boil them first, you'd want them to be pretty dry before you freeze them, and that would be kind of tough to.
Yeah, and the way I would freeze them is I would set them on a plate, just separately, put them in the freezer,
Mhm.
let them get cold, then put them in a container or a bag, because you know what, they'll stick together. So
Right.
better if they're kind of frozen while they're sitting out there separately.
We do that with our blueberries when the Kiwanis blueberry sale happens. We clean them and we put them on a
Cookie
paper
sheet or something
towels
on
to
there.
dry. Then we put them on a cookie sheet to put them in the freezer, and they freeze individually. Then you can put them in whatever container you want, and they stay pretty well individual.
I don't think I've ever frozen berries.
That Kiwanis sale is really nice, but you get a lot of blueberries.
I make a good blueberry pie. That's my other thing. I like to make pies. Lots of different things. There's just something about being in the kitchen. Like if I had time, I would, every day, like when I didn't work, when I was just home with the kids, he would come home and there would be full chicken, mashed potatoes, like a mini Thanksgiving. And he's like, why isn't the house clean? Because this is what I'd rather do.
Yeah.
I'm keeping an eye on the time.
Mhm.
And this weekend, my little almost 2-year-old granddaughter came over, and I decided to bake with her, and I realized that it doubles the time when you're working with a child. It was great though. It was really fun.
Those are my best memories, like
Yeah.
making stuff with my mom, making Christmas cookies and decorating them. And my sons are 22 and 23, and that's still what they want. They want those Christmas cookies that are such a lot of work. But, that's just like food is culture and family. I mean, that's how you bonded with and learn about different people, is by sharing a meal.
Oh, absolutely.
The first time I had, like, I think it was one of our Peace Corps directors was married to a Senegalese woman. And so we went to their house, and it was just so interesting to eat with them. Tom lived in Belgium for a while.
For a year, yeah.
Yeah, I always say that but when I worked for Global Connections, everything we did was about food. So when I started World Kitchen, I really thought of it more as a culture show through the vehicle of food instead of the other way around. It's not really a cooking show about culture. It's a culture show about cooking.
What I was really impressed with was, how seriously they take all of their meals, right? I mean, I was, at a school there, and lunch was, a 2-hour lunch every day, and the cafeteria put out really nice meals on, like, every day for lunch, and it was just different.
Yeah, here we're like, shove it down at McDonald's and get back to work.
Or sit at your desk and,
That's the thing with working at home. There is more time to like make something to eat,
that's true.
and you're not.
All right, so these are ready, just go in the frying pan, so.
Yeah, just.
Drain them
And
a
then
little
if
bit.
you're doing that, you gotta be careful of the water splattering with the oil. Remember, the density of oil is less than water and it's gonna go up.
And then you want to tell Susan is a science teacher.
We had a friend, one of my mom's friends, had a diner. And he had a grease fire and, he was panicked. Threw water on it, burned all over. Oh, you have to just be ready, be careful.
So we're sizzling those parboiled pierogies in with the onions that Tom had already sauteed. Do you season that at all?
I think there's some salt in the water, right? That's about it.
Yeah, that's pretty much
Okay.
it. While you're doing that, you can put these in the water. So we know these are all sauerkraut. Let me drop these in the water. And just keep an eye on the time. I think these, I made the dough a little thick because I was nervous.
So I assume, Tom, you're putting maybe what, like 6 or 8 in a skillet? You want them all to be able to touch the bottom of the skillet?
Yeah, I put a couple more than that in here. There's probably 12 or so. But
Okay.
yeah, you just want to give them room to, it's like all brown on both sides.
And that's pretty much gonna be it. While he's doing that, I'm just working the rest of the dough. I always find that so we made dough for one mixture, so of course there's gonna be extra mixtures. You just put them in the fridge, make dough tomorrow. Make more.
Great.
if
Yeah.
you want. I'm gonna show you how this works while we're doing it. Just see.
Okay. Does it? Oh, okay. I was gonna say, does it like clamp down or?
It does. I was thinking I could get away with not clamping it. No, I can't. It won't quite fit there. So I'll do it this way, which is how I do my apple. Just lay it down.
Wow.
So this is quite a bit easier. So that's thick. And you take it and go to the next one. Put it through again.
I'm gonna hold it.
Just watch your hand. I don't want to squish your hand. You just put one hand down there.
Split on.
That's right. So we'll just let it go. And then you would just keep going and just taking it thinner and thinner.
Uh-huh.
And I found if I use this and this, I can put out a lot more pierogies. And then when it's like kind of holy there,
Mhm.
it needs more flour.
Oh, okay.
So you have to like kind of coat it with flour before you put it through this. So I like, it's a nice gadget. A little gift for myself.
Yeah.
There's nothing, but when I first started doing it, I saw these holes and I wasn't sure why it was doing that. And I would put it through once and then I would roll it
Mhm.
because I wasn't figuring out. I mean, if you're not cooking, as you know, just make a mistake, try again. Not like, trying to do your own electricity, you might not get a second chance.
Right. So that first pass with the roller is really just kind of letting the dough know where it needs to be.
Yeah, and like keeping it from like
Yeah.
going off the edges, and then you start trying to cut it.
Mhm.
And that's when I like this part too, because it's rounded.
Kind of digs in a little deeper.
Yeah, but you still do have to be gentle. Like the first time I used it, I went hard over here. That didn't turn out well.
Mhm.
But it's a nice little gadget, and they look a lot prettier from this thing. They don't look as messy. You know, that like presentation thing.
Mhm.
But then you might have someone say, "Did you buy those?"
No, I made them. They just look beautiful because I'm so good at it.
I remember reading a novel where the lady was she bought store-bought something for her child's party, and then she deliberately made it messy so that she could say it was handmade. Because she was busy. Not everyone has time to cook. All right, you want to put this aside and we can show the finished product.
Serving dish with the sour cream.
Oh,
I was just gonna
oh
use
yeah.
some of my Polish pottery.
I almost brought mine because I was like, I have like a different amount, different kinds. I have like just random things. I've never bought a full set,
Mhm.
but I just, every time I get a chance. Let me hold it up.
Go.
here.
There's our Polish pottery.
You got a
Sour cream.
little sour cream. Go with your pierogies. What's a Polish phrase? I only know curse words.
Yeah, me too.
You can't think of a word we can say in polite
I
country.
only know, yeah, curse words that I used to hear as a kid from my father.
So we're just finishing up the sauteing of the sauerkraut ones, which will look very similar to that.
Yeah, you won't be, that's what usually, if you want to know which is which, you want to keep them separate.
All right, we are hitting right around the 3 o'clock mark. So I'm sorry you're not here to actually see and taste and smell how delicious this all is, but Alex and I will taste it all for you and let you know. But I want to thank Susan and Tom for coming and helping out with this month's World Kitchen. If any of you have a culture or food that you would like to share, send me an email and we'll talk about you coming and joining us 1 month in the spring or summer. So next month we already have everything set up for, and that's going to be a world of soups. We've picked 4 different soups. And we're going to be making those on December 19th, I believe it is. So that should be up on the WPSU website next week. You can start registering for that, and the recipes will be there as well. And hopefully we'll see you in December. Thanks for coming.